Okay, welcome back. In the last video, we went ahead and added some listeners to these menu tile divs. So we have this menu div, which is this big DOM element here. It's just an HTML element, and we've added divs inside of that, which are going to function as buttons, and we added callbacks or listeners so that when I roll over it, it changes color, and when I click on it, it changes color again. When I roll off, it changes color. In this video, we're going to add a little bit more. So when I click on the mouse, I get a new image, and this is the top-down view. And when I click a second time and let go of it, he is placed, and when he is placed, he's going to follow the mouse, and if the mouse gets close enough, he's going to shoot his bullets or projectiles. So this is an old game we did. It was called Fat Kids, and there's a chubby child in the bottom of the screen, and the junk food would follow some path and try to reach him, and you could click on the child's toys, and they would throw health food like broccoli, or in the case of the truck, carrots, or in the case of the Triceratops, looks like apples, or the spaceship does bananas, which are a little bit out of orientation, but that's okay. And of course, the Jack-in-the-Box would naturally throw strawberries. In any case, that's the functionality we're going to add in this video. Okay, before we go any further, I wanted to mention a couple of things about what's happening in this method, tile clicked. This is the callback when I click a tile at any point during the run of the program. I'm going to jump down here, and it says if tower game.placing tower equals true, return. And what that's going to cause is that if I click on a menu tile div and then click on another menu tile div before I've placed the first tower, I'm not going to just keep accumulating towers that are going to be following the mouse. In other words, I'm only going to allow one tower at a time to follow the mouse. So in that case, placing towers as Boolean. As soon as I click on this, I check to see if it's true. The second thing I wanted to mention is right here I've got get bank value, and I just put 100 in here because I needed a number, but what would be a better idea is to say this.cost. And I wanted to mention that now because I wanted to point out what this is. When you are in the game class, this is the game object. When you're in the tower class, this becomes a particular tower object. So we write this one tower class, for instance, and then we can make many, many towers from that constructor function. And every time I have a particular tower, this is referring to that particular tower object. But in this case, even though I am in the game class, this takes on a different meaning when I am inside the listener. In this case, when I go inside tile clicked, inside this listener, this now becomes the object that was clicked. So typically in the game class, this would refer to the game object, but now that I'm in listener, this refers to the whatever object that was. And the important thing about that is that I've got 5 different menu tiles, and if I click on any one of them, they all have 2 image properties that show a top-down view of the tower and then also the bullet. And so I need to know this cost, for instance, is going to be different for the tower associated with each of those menu tile divs. So also when I'm calling, so this says if tower.getBankValue is greater than this.cost. If I have enough money in the bank, more money in the bank than the tower costs, I can go ahead and I can create a tower. And notice I'm sending in this. If I look down at the method that's called, so my tower game object, I've got a create tower, and so that's right in here, create tower, MTD. This, inside the callback, is the menu tile div. So I'm receiving it down here as MTD, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new tower. And I'm going to pass in the cost of that tower, and those 2 other properties that were a part of the menu tile div, I'm going to go ahead and pass those guys in here. And so if the tower exists, I want to go ahead and push that into my array of towers, and else I go ahead and create this console log. So again, we follow the chain from inside the callback. This is the thing that was clicked, passing that down here, and so now I have access to the properties cost, canvas tower image, and canvas bullet image. And then finally, the last point I want to make about this is notice that even though I'm in the game class, I'm not using this for the tower game. I have a tower game object. I'm inside the tower game class, so typically if I was anywhere else in this class, anywhere other than a callback, I could just say this.createTower. But because I'm in the callback, this is sort of shifted meaning, and now this refers to the object that was clicked, and so I'm using tower game rather than the word this. Create tower is a method inside the tower game class, but I can't say this.tower game because now the meaning of this has shifted. Okay, so now we get to the fun part. We have clicked on a menu tile div. We have recognized that with a listener. So when I click on it, I get a click listener. The listener passes a listen event, and I go ahead and I start to create a turret. And when I create a turret, I need to pass control now to the canvas. So when the mouse moves onto the canvas, a turret will appear, and it will follow the mouse where the mouse goes. And when I click on the canvas, I want to place the mouse on the canvas. And so the key variable that I'm going to use here is called placing turret. When I click on the menu tile div, if I'm not already placing a turret, then placing turret becomes true. And then I'm going to go ahead and set mouse listeners on the canvas itself. So I'm going to come right up here. Let's see, I create a I create a canvas. The width is 900, the height is 750. Then I'm going to append it to the canvas. And now I'm just going to add the listeners. And so I'm going to have 3 listeners, and they are, I'm just going to paste them in here, but I have this .canvas is the HTML element that I've created in JavaScript. And I'm going to add mouse move, mouse over, and I'm going to click. So now this click listener is for the canvas itself. So I'm adding these 3 event listeners to the canvas. Okay, so I think I'll start with mouse move. So let's say I've already clicked on the menu tile div, and so placing turret becomes true. So now when the mouse moves over the turret, whichever turret I'm placing should appear. Now this is the second image. The second image is the image of the top-down view of the turret. It's just another transparent PNG. And so I will put this down underneath the constructor for right now. We can move it later, but this is it. It's handle canvas mouse moved and event. You don't have to have the word event in here. Even if you leave the parentheses blank, this still gets passed in the event. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that in a moment inside the log so we can see what this looks like. But this is key. This .mousex equals, and so this is just a variable that I'm creating, but the event, which I'm passing in here, is offset x. And I think even if I take this out, I'll try that in a minute. If I delete that, I can still choose this event. The event, remember, the event listener is all about listening for a particular event. And so I'm passing in, I've got a mouse move event, a mouse over event, and a click event. And these are JavaScript objects with lots of properties and methods inside of them. One of the properties is offset x. And this was confusing for me at first because there is another property of the event. We're going to look at it, and I think it is mouse x or something like that. But the key thing is you can have the x and y position of the mouse within the entire window, or you can have the mouse x and mouse y position inside the canvas. So it's offset x and offset y that record where the mouse is inside of the canvas itself. And so that's an important distinction. I'll go ahead and look up what the other one is in just a moment. But right now we have the inside the canvas, we have the location of the mouse, the x and y location of the mouse, and that's here. So if the tower game towers.length is less than 1, that means there are no towers, so I'm just going to return. I don't know why I would go in this method if there were no towers, but let's just assume I'm coming in here. If there are no towers, return. Otherwise, if I've got tower game towers and I've got -1 is placed, so if this tower has not been placed and tower game placing tower is equal to true. So I have to be placing a tower, and the tower I'm considering has not been placed. Then I can come in here, and I have towergame.towers, and I find the last tower, and I take its location x, set equal to mouse x. I take its location y, and I set it to mouse y. So this whole tower game, remember, I'm inside a listener, so I'm not going to say this .towers. I have to say towergame.towers, and then I go to the last element, because I'm pushing these into the when I use the push method to push each tower into the array, I've just clicked on a tower, I've just pushed it into the array, so the very last element is this guy, and so I'm going to set its location x and its location y to whatever mouse x and mouse y are. Okay, so now let's consider this method, or this property rather, placing tower. So I'm going to say this dot placing tower, and placing tower is going to be set initially to false. So when the game starts, I'm not placing a tower, obviously. When I click the menu tile div, I want to go ahead and set that equal to true. Actually, if I'm not already placing a tower, then I want to set it to true. So down here, when it says handle canvas mouse moved, notice I say if placing tower is equal to true, then I want to continue and set these guys equal. If I'm not placing a tower, then I don't want to have a tower following the mouse. But all this is doing is in the mouse moved listener, anytime I'm moving the mouse over the canvas, if I'm placing a tower, that tower is going to be located, its X and Y location in its vector object is going to be following whatever the mouse is, wherever the mouse X and Y are. Okay, so now we're going to try a little test. I actually had to change the name of this callback function. It says HNDL canvas mouse moved. I'm not exactly sure why. When I had it the way I had it before, they were matching perfectly. I copied and pasted here, it wasn't working. So finally I just changed the name and now it works. But what I want to do is go ahead and run this. So make sure you change them if you're following along with what I'm doing. HNDL canvas mouse moved. So when I get a mouse move event, the listener's listening for a mouse move event. When I move the mouse over the canvas, I'm going to go ahead and call this function, and it's going to have this event. What I'm curious about is what is this event? And so let's go back to our program here, running this in the DOM. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I to go into the developer tools, and notice I put a little breakpoint here. So I want to see what event is, and so if I go ahead and reload this and I click on event, notice event has tons of stuff involved in it. So we do have offset X and offset Y. That tells me the last location of the mouse. But I also have up here client X and client Y. Remember before I said I thought it was mouse X and mouse Y? Client X and client Y is what I was thinking of, and that's the location of the mouse in the whole document. Canvas is just one element in the document, and so to get that, we need to come down here to offset X and offset Y. One of my kids asked me, why do they call it that? And I basically said, whoever wrote this program, whoever wrote this particular function decided to call it that for whatever reason. In any case, that's what I'm going to be using. This is going to give me the mouse location in the canvas. If I want to find the mouse location of the document, which I will later, then I'm going to go ahead and use this other one, which was client X and client Y. Notice they're different. This is 272, 138. Offset X and offset Y are different values, 261 and 28. Okay, so now we're going to do a little debugging. Right now, if I click on the menu tile, notice I'm not getting a tower here. And I notice I'm not pushing a tower into the array of towers. And so I have to figure out why that is. And so we'll do a little bit of debugging. And this is where JavaScript is really different than Java. I don't have a compile button to hit. This is just running inside the browser. So if I hit Control-Shift-I in Chrome, I'm going to come in here. And I can click on this guy. And notice that when I click on him, I'm getting an undefined here. So let's see where that's taking place. In any case, I put a little console log, and we're going to use console.log to get through most of this. I've got tile clicked is right here, and so if I come in here, let's just go inside, just log inside tile clicked, just so I know I'm in here. Tile clicked. And so that means that if I'm coming in here, I click on the tile, I'm coming in here, that's great. And I should just see that message appear, and there it is. Good. So I know I'm going inside the right place. And so now I've got this guy called placing tower. We kind of run through him pretty well. I've got this guy called get bank value. And I think this should be a method. What I'm going to do instead of using this is I'm going to create a property called bank value. And so I'm going to say tower game bank value. So back up here in the properties, inside my constructor, I'm going to add another guy. I'm going to say this bank value, and we'll just set him equal to 1,000 for right now. And so let's go ahead and log that and see what I get. So coming back down here, I can say, let's just go ahead and say tower game bank value and see what this guy is. So now if I run the program again, I can say, click on this guy, and I get 1,000, and I get 1,000, and I get 1,000. Good. And I've got an error here when I clicked on this guy. That's interesting. This guy, not this guy, and this guy. Okay, so we'll go back and trace through that later on, but for right now, let's go back and check our logic inside this method. So I should be getting down inside if tower game placing tower equals true, return. So let's see if I can get in here, and if I can, so I'm going to say inside, let's say bank value okay. So that means I'm coming inside. I've passed this, and I've passed this condition, which is what I want when I'm placing a tower. So I reload it. Bank value okay. Okay, so that's good. So now let's see if I'm actually getting a tower. So what I should say here is I've got create tower. So let's see if I'm getting into create tower, and that's down here. So down here I should see towers.length. Let's see, this dot towers. Let's see, this dot towers dot length should increase every time I press a button. So let's try that and see what happens. 1. Okay, so I got 1 tower, and notice it's not appearing. Oh, I see. So the this error happens when I move the mouse over. So I just come over here, I get 1, but only 1. And now if I move the mouse over here, that's where I'm getting error. Cannot read property width of undefined, and so that is saying that this .tower image is not defined. So let me find out where that is. Okay, so the debugger is showing me that I've got something here. It says width is, I can't find the width of something undefined. So that means tower image is undefined. So let's see, I'm passing in a tower image and a bullet image here, and notice I'm sending that equal to this .tower image, and so this name doesn't match this name. So I've got to go back and change that. So back into the code, I'm going to open up tower class, and so here's tower, and if I come in here, I want this name to be the name of my tower image. So that's going to be this guy. And let's go ahead and see what that does. I'll go ahead and run this again and see what happens. So run it, go back to the console, click on this, and if I roll over here, hey, I've got that guy. Okay, good. So now it says vector 2D is not defined. So let's go ahead and figure out what that is. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting problem. I put inside the tower class a little console.log at 27, and it said, well, what is this .loc? And so when I click on this, notice that it is logging the location, location 00. If I move out over here, it's logging where the location of the mouse is. So the tower object, in this case the little teddy bear, has a location vector, and where I move the mouse, it's getting its location set equal to that. When I click on it, it suddenly becomes undefined, and so there's the problem. So if I go back into the game class and look at placing tower, I'm actually setting, I'm creating a new JS vector where it's the canvas mouse X and canvas mouse Y. If I simply go in there and let's go ahead and go into placing tower, and I'm going to comment that line out. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I noticed that if I go ahead and comment that line out and reload, now if I put this in, I'm not overwriting that location vector, and it works fine. So these guys are all getting, click on them, they drag out, and we can locate them. So that's working, and I'll try to figure out why that wasn't working when I create that last vector there. But anyway, we don't need to. It's working just fine, and so the next thing is to get it to rotate. So let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, so finally the last thing I'm going to do in this video is set it up so that when I click on this guy and drop him off there, I want him to follow the mouse. And so so right now, if I put him in, he's just locked in. The angle of this guy is 0. So let's go back and look at the code for that real quickly. I'm going to come in here to update. So this is my tower class, and when I come into the tower class, I'm going to run. Run is going to call update and render. Update has nothing in it right now. Render is rendering the teddy bear, for instance, or whatever tower I happen to click on. It's rendering it just fine. But to find the angle, I'm going to take the angle between the teddy bear and the mouse. We're going to have the angle, I'm going to have the teddy bear point towards the mouse. So if I just paste in, let's see, dx and dy. So what I need to do is find the towergame.canvas.mousex. So the canvas has a mouse X and mouse Y. I'm taking the difference of the location of where the tower is and the mouse is. I'm calling that dx and dy. There's a function in the math class of JavaScript. It's called atan2. There's also an atan, by the way. Stay away from it. Go to atan2 instead. And we're going to go just plug in the difference of the y's, the difference in the x's. We're going to offset that by 90 degrees. So this guy is going to take in a radian value. It's going to take in two parameters. It's going to return a radian value. So this is a radian value, math.pi, which happens to be 180 degrees. And I want the tower angle to be equal to that. So this atan2 function is how we're going to determine the angle. Anyway, if I save this now and I come back and reload the program, this guy now, whatever the tower I happen to have, he's just going to follow the mouse. So I click on it, I'm placing a tower. When I click on the canvas, I've placed the tower, and now when I'm updating it, it is going to follow the mouse. Once again, taking a look at that code, I'm taking the difference in the x values between the location of the tower and the location of the mouse, the difference in the y location of the tower and the y location of the mouse. I'm sending those two values into math.atan2. I adjust it by 180 degrees or pi radians, and then that is the particular tower angle, so that when I translate this guy, it's going to locate where this guy is, and then it's going to rotate around that angle. The reason I'm translating is that rotation always rotates around the origin. So translates shifts the origin, the point 0, 0, to wherever the tower happens to be, in this case location X and location Y. And so when I rotate, instead of rotating around the upper left-hand corner of the canvas, I'll be rotating around the actual location of the tower. So it's going to rotate around itself. And then anytime I use save, I use restore. And I'm going to go ahead and save this video here, stop this video here rather, and then we will go ahead and put in the bullets in the next video. So that's it for today. Bye-bye.